Hello, I'm Alan Clark. I'm retired from working in physical therapy. I've worked as a machinist, a welder, a carpenter, a pastor, and a farmer. Nita and I raised 5 kids here while we operated a floor covering and paint store. Today I want to talk about how we have experienced the Lord as our protector. Jehovah Rocky is one of the compound names of God. It means the Lord my shepherd, the Lord my protector. God has shown himself to be a protector of those that believe him and trust him. There are Bible accounts and present day testimonies of his hand of protection. For people like Daniel, who was taken by force from his homeland, and he was transplanted into a pagan country. He remained steadfast, believing in God. He refused to abandon his relationship and his time of praying to God and listening to God. The Lord Jehovah Rocky protected Daniel from the corrupt legal system of that time in history. I think of another one. People consider me to be tall, but I've been around people that were taller than me. Sometimes people up around 7 foot tall, and it can feel a little intimidating. Just think about how much more intimidating it would be if you stood close to somebody that was 9 foot tall or 11 foot tall. But David, as a boy, he was steadfast in his trust in God. Trust that Jehovah Rocky would protect him no matter what size his adversary. Some of our adversaries or our adversities can seem enormous. Things like financial debt, things like drought, things like being abandoned by people. Every sort of problem can seem to be too enormous to overcome. Now, I believe that I can overcome a $200 debt. But when I've continued to accumulate debt, can I keep the hope that I can turn it around when it reaches 200,000? Little example, our smallest coin is the dime. Let's say that it represents our problem situation. Now, it's small compared to everything else, but if I allow it to be all that I focus on, it blots out everything else. Every hardship that we face is going to be that 11-foot giant. When we don't see it as God sees it. But seeing things through God's perspective involves trusting Him, no matter what we see or feel. My first inclination is to trust my own understanding. But my understanding knows so little, and God's ways are so vast. The situation that I see as a mountain is very small compared to God's ability. God always sees our battles as winnable. He's capable of providing protection. Now, some of the ways that He provides protection, Jesus spoke to the storm, and the wind and the waves obeyed. And in this instance, the disciples had the problem so close to their eye that they couldn't see from the Lord's perspective. They had the Lord Almighty in the boat with them. So in this instance, the disciples were pleading for protection. Another example, the Lord's promise to Moses was, "I'll be with you." Now, realize the Israelites moved through the uninhabited regions of the upper Arabian Peninsula for 4 decades. Their population kept increasing, and so did their everyday survival needs. Let's imagine the requirements of the population of Amarillo and Lubbock combined. The basic necessities of food, water, shelter, not to forget things like the manufacture of clothing, the manufacture of household goods, sanitation management. Jehovah Rohi, His presence was with them and provided protection. Over the years, I've experienced both of these types of God's protection. I'm only going to tell you about one here. When our daughter was born, we couldn't make the drive across town to the hospital in time. We had to stop and do an in-the-car delivery. So Nita's doctor checked everyone out thoroughly in the hospital then and sent us home that afternoon with advice. Prepare for any future deliveries to be at home rather than in the car. 2 years down the road, pun intended, we had to begin to prepare for a delivery at home. I read up on the basics of what to do, but the Lord Jehovah Rahi caused an unusual book to come into my hands. I don't even remember where I got it or how. It was written by a military doctor. He was serving in Europe during World War II. In addition to his responsibilities to the military, he detailed different deliveries of babies over there that he was involved with. There was one chapter in particular that was about problem births, and he gave detailed descriptions of how to deal with each of those situations. So fast forward a few months, and the time came, and we were prepared, just like Nita's doctor had instructed us, to have a birth at home. But it became apparent that there was a problem. The top of the baby's head would become visible during a labor contraction, but then it would retract back in between contractions. The Lord, our protector, caused me to remember something that I had read months earlier. This doctor had instructed the person that was going to be acting as a midwife to reach under the baby's chin, find the umbilical that was around the baby's neck, and pull it up over the baby's head. So that's what I did, but it only allowed us to gain a couple of inches of progress. But the Lord, our protector, was with us. He caused us to know to do that same thing again. And sure enough, there had been 2 loops of the umbilical around the baby's neck. So with the next push, our son was delivered, and with a surprisingly short umbilical besides. Now, Nita and I, had cultivated a deep trust beforehand. We had cultivated a deep trust in God beforehand. No matter what mountain we faced, it was small compared to God's protection. We know that protection is based on His ability, not ours. No panic. We're in His boat. Let's pray. Lord, I thank you that you always protect us, no matter what. We are in your family, your kingdom, your plan, and your purpose. And you provide what we need. Help us always to put our trust in you. I'd like to say thanks for tuning in for the 21 days of prayer and fasting. If feel free to smash the like button and share these videos. Join us again tomorrow for another one. Thanks.